Over the past few years, a major change has been happening in global economics. Some of the world's largest countries, like India, Russia, and China, have been working together to reduce their dependence on the US dollar. This group, known as BRICS plus Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and new members Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Ethiopia, is creating new ways to trade with each other without using the dollar. In this video, we will break down how this trend is developing and what it means for the future of global trade and the power of the US dollar. A few weeks ago, India's Prime Minister Modi traveled to Moscow to meet with Russia's President, Vladimir Putin. They discussed increasing trade between their countries. Last year, trade between India and Russia reached $65 billion, a huge 33% increase from the previous year. A large part of this trade increase comes from India buying more oil from Russia, especially after Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. In fact, India's purchase of Russian oil has jumped by 100% since then. This growing partnership is significant because it shows how Russia is finding ways to get around the heavy sanctions placed on it by the US and its allies. These sanctions, over 16,000 of them, were meant to hurt Russia's economy, but 85% of countries around the world have not agreed to them. By working with countries like India, Russia is finding ways to keep its economy running smoothly. One of the most important parts of the new agreement between India and Russia is a new payment system. This system allows both countries to trade directly with each other without needing to convert their money into US dollars first. This is a big step towards de-dollarization, where countries use their local currencies for international trade instead of the dollar. By the end of their meeting, Putin and Modi set a goal to increase their trade to $100 billion by 2030. This goal highlights the strong relationship between the two countries and suggests that other BRICS members might follow a similar path. Notably, BRICS countries have been increasing their gold reserves much faster than other nations since 2018, showing a clear move away from relying on the US dollar. Now, 1/3 of all central banks worldwide plan to increase their gold reserves in 2024. The sanctions placed on Russia by the US and its allies have not had the impact they hoped for. Instead of weakening Russia, these actions have pushed more countries to move away from the US dollar. This shift will likely continue at the upcoming BRICS summit, which Russia will host in October. During this meeting, the leaders of BRICS countries will discuss the future of their new payment system and consider adding new members to their group in 2025. Andrei Kostin, the CEO of Russia's Vermont B Bank, emphasized the need for BRICS to develop its own payment system that can include countries from the global south. This system would allow these countries to trade using their own currencies instead of relying on the US dollar. Although there were rumors that BRICS might create a new shared currency, it seems they are now focusing more on building this cross-border payment system. Using local currencies and creating new payment systems are smart moves for BRICS countries. These strategies save money on exchange rates and strengthen their local economies. It is not just Russia and India that are making these changes. China, for example, has launched its cross-border interbank payment system, CIPs, which allows international transactions to be settled in its currency, the renminbi. Over the past year, this system has added 62 new direct participants, bringing the total to over 1,500 worldwide. These efforts show a global trend where more and more countries want to move away from the restrictions of using US dollars and the US-controlled SWIFT banking system. Recently, China also took a big step by launching the first real trade service using its central bank digital currency, CBDC. China is far ahead in digital currency development, with a 10-year lead over the United States. China's move towards digital currency is strategic. With the US being slow to develop its own digital currency due to its comfortable position as the world's reserve currency, China sees an opportunity. The Chinese government hopes that its investments in digital currencies will be as successful as its early investments in the electric vehicle (EV) industry. Over the past 2 decades, China has grown from having no significant presence in the EV market to becoming the global leader. China's digital currency could reduce the cost of transactions and make cross-border trade more efficient. This development could become key technology for future trade between BRICS members. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) recently revised its world economic outlook and made surprising predictions for the growth of BRICS countries. The IMF raised its growth outlook for China and India to 5% and 7%, respectively, while the United States is the only G7 nation expected to grow above 1%. In contrast, the entire euro area is projected to grow at only 0.9%, with Germany having the lowest growth rate among developed nations at just 0.2%. This data shows a stark contrast. BRICS nations are projected to experience some of the highest growth rates for the remainder of 2024. Meanwhile, major Western economies like the US and those in the Eurozone are expected to grow slowly. The New York Times also reported that the US economy might cool down in the future, further highlighting these differences. For much of this year, the narrative has been that China's economy is weakening due to low consumer spending and a struggling job market. However, the IMF has described the US economy in similar terms. Inflation remains a big problem in the US, and the national debt is growing at an alarming rate, nearly $1 trillion every 100 days. Along with this, political uncertainty is rising in the US, causing more countries to lose trust in the American political system. A recent survey showed that even some of America's closest allies, like Germany, Great Britain, and Canada, believe that the US is no longer a strong example of democracy. Nearly a quarter of people in Britain and Germany think the US has never been a good example. The upcoming US presidential elections will have global consequences. The new IMF report suggests that the election results could cause big changes in economic policies, increasing uncertainty and potentially negatively affecting the rest of the world. For example, Trump first introduced tariffs on Chinese goods in 2016, and Biden expanded those tariffs in 2020. Recently, there has been talk of a new 60% tariff on Chinese goods if Trump returns to the White House. However, these tariffs have not had the desired effect on Chinese exports. Instead, China has shifted its focus to the global south, boosting its export share. US tariffs on Chinese goods would likely hurt American consumers more than Chinese producers. Interestingly, Trump has even suggested allowing China to sell its EVs in the US market. This would be a big win for China, which already dominates the EV industry and controls everything from supply chains to battery technology. Nickel is one of the most important metals needed to produce an EV battery, and 64 pounds of nickel are required for each EV battery in the United States. The US imports all of its nickel, which is why the Department of Energy identified it as a critical resource for the future. The world is shifting away from the US dollar as the dominant global currency. Countries in the BRICS group are taking steps to trade more with each other using their currencies, and are developing new digital and payment systems to support this change. As a result, the balance of global economic power is slowly moving away from the West, creating a new and unpredictable economic landscape for the future. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more updates.